Chris Landry, segment 2 on a Tuesday. Make sure to grab him at Landry Football on X, LandryFootball.com. Chris, before I have a couple NFL questions, of course, we'll get more into the NFL with the Combine coming up and other things with you here in the coming weeks. But it looks like Florida State and the ACC, at least on excerpts I've read, may be coming to some sort of a divorce settlement, a buyout, shall we say. If this does happen, do you foresee a potential exodus now of the ACC that could be coming in the next year?
The talk that is heating up is, and this is real intriguing when you think about this, it's the term being used, private equity funding.
Yeah.
Would a school like Florida State basically go to a private equity group and get, $500 million? And that private equity company would have ownership, like own, I don't know, 33%. I'm just making this up, folks. The numbers, 33% of the revenue for the next, 7 years, 8 years. In which case, but for that they would get $500 million up front, which they could pay off to get out of the ACC. And then they would have to, for the forever term that is agreed upon, they would have to give up a percentage, but they would get a lot more money, and then they could pay that off over time. And then once that time period is over, then they're free and clear. That is an option. But before anybody can take that path, they have to have a home. Do we know for certain Big Ten wants them? I don't get the feeling that the SEC does. I just no one. I don't get a sense from any of my friends in the SEC that. I mean, I will get a different conversation. Ears will perk up when the thought of Clemson comes up. It just doesn't. For whatever reason, they just don't have that warm fuzzy feeling about Florida State, and it's nothing to do with this past off season and the vitriol. It's just now I almost get the feeling like if the Big Ten wants to get in the SEC or the Florida footprint, that maybe they would be interested. And if they are interested, would the SEC then become interested in trumping them to keep them out of Florida? That's the only thing, but it just doesn't. And I think that's the most important thing, because I think the other part is potentially doable. I do think, and by the way, that is why the ACC made the move to bring in Stanford, Cal, and SMU. There is a clause in their agreement that they have to have a certain amount of teams in the conference, or else the grant of rights is null and void, meaning if Florida State, Clemson with the and then it falls below that number, then there are no grant of rights. So people say, well, why would they bring in Stanford, Cal, and SMU? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't, other than it gives them numbers and security to keep the number up to the threshold to where the grant of rights are still in vogue, so it protects the financial solvency of the ACC. So I think it's one we're going to have to watch. I'm not going to tell you that I have any idea where it's going to go, but those are the questions that need to get answered. Who wants them? Because it's not a slam dunk. It wasn't like when Texas and Oklahoma, the SEC were interested. I don't know that this has been mentioned a bunch, but I found out after the fact that USC and UCLA had a conversation with the SEC when they thought there was Big Ten interest, and the SEC just was not interested in budging with that. So this was not like a shock to the SEC. They don't, to this point, the SEC doesn't want to get out of their footprint. They've expanded the footprint, but the footprint's just gotten larger, whereas the Big Ten has had to take a different approach. They're going to go – they're already from, Piscataway, New Jersey to Los Angeles, California, and that's just how they have to do their business, because in order to get the quality, they just got to go pick and choose, whereas the SEC feels like, look, we're still in continuum states, which they are. So I don't know what that means for Florida State, where they're going to end up. I know they want to leave. would you leave the ACC to go to the Big 12 if you were them? You're not getting any more money than you're going to get from the ACC deal, other than the Big 12 contract, TV contract comes up sooner than the ACC. But I got to believe that that Florida State's not making this move unless they know they get in a handshake agreement that they're welcome into the SEC or the Big Ten. It's got to be that first, or else they can't make the move.